This is what leadership looks like right now. Accor isn't waiting for the perfect data or guaranteed ROI. They're testing behavior. They can't lose. They're learning how guests search. They're showing up where attention already lives. That alone puts them ahead of most global hotel groups.
Hit it, boys.
Social platforms are going to be the new OTAs.
Whoever owns the moment of intent controls the bookings.
Are we going to get a bubble? There are thousands of hotels with hundreds of rooms that still need to be filled.
We're going to be focused on this independent, cool lifestyle and luxury, but I have to market like a bank.
I think that we can give our 2 cents into the stories that are going on.
Will be in your ears and on your screens every Friday morning.
Let's do it.
Let's roll.
This is the gold, bro. This is the gold.
All right, friends, family, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Hospitality. We are down a man again this week. It's a different man. We have Sir Ben Wolf, who was not only able to make the pod this week. We wish him well. He'll be back next week. But our European correspondent has returned. Edwin, welcome back to the program, man. How are you doing this fine week?
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. In Barcelona at the moment.
In Barcelona. And then we've got Scott, who's no longer in Bangkok, but is also not in Miami, where he is, I don't know, kind of sort of based, you could say. I don't know if you're based anywhere, Scott, because you're freaking...
My storage unit is there.
Your storage unit is there, yeah. Your storage unit is in Miami. He's in Jamaica today calling in and got some fun content that they're producing there. Scott, I want to actually ask you a little bit about that before we dive into the news here. So you do a lot of different things. You were just telling me right before we hit record here that you're working on kind of a longer form storytelling series for a couple hotels in Jamaica. My question for you is like, what does like your team look like? Like, are you holding the camera, asking the questions? Like, talk to us a little bit about how are you actually producing this content, and what is it that you think is resonating best with both the hotel, your client, but then also the people that end up watching the content? Like, talk to us about the format that you think is performing well right now.
So I have one photographer that travels with me pretty much all the time. And then I have 2 or 3 different videographers that I use. One really close friend who lives here. So everything that I do in the Caribbean, he's my guy. So he's here filming with me. So this is really important for this day and age because first off, creator-led or founder-led content is all the rage. And it's killing it. And not only that, if you're filming it the right way and you're asking the right questions to get into that AI search, it's really, really important because things that you said 5 years ago are not going to be able to resonate with AI these days. So a lot of people have to refilm their content and they really don't understand that. So I'm really fortunate that, when we talk about it all the time, this guy has independent properties. He is the sole owner. So he's able to move as fast as he wants. He makes decisions as quickly as he wants. And we do a lot of very cool things. And so this is one of the very few hotel owners I know in the world. He monitors Instagram and LinkedIn all the time. He forwards me links probably 4 times a week. He's like, they're doing some cool stuff here. Like, look at St. Lucia, look in London, look in Tokyo. Like he's like, how can I get this better? How can we do this? So he's like he's got his finger on the pulse. He's great. Chris is one of the rare hotel owners out there that really understands, because there's a big difference between the mentality of a hotel GM or a hotel owner in Asia and in the Caribbean.
Yeah. And actually, let's press into that just a little bit, and then we can dive into our news stories here. But I've been thinking about this, and we were texting about this in the group chat of how do we bring in some fresh, right, on the ground truth, whether they be truth bombs or just ideas from GMs. It's an incredible time to be in hospitality. It's a challenging time to be in hospitality. It's always been challenging. I mean, you guys know this better than me, right? Edwin, you probably know this, having been a GM in many different locales. It's just a tough industry, and yet, right, as we've said ad nauseum here on this program, it's arguably like one of the most, if not the most important industries right now because it's human, right? And it requires a level of intimacy, quite frankly, that just you're not going to find in almost any other sector right now. So Scott, my specific question for you is, I think it'd be fun to do this like ground truth from GMs, right? And you, because you are freaking all over the place in new hotels pretty much every time we record.
Yeah.
I think you have this interesting vantage point on like what folks are actually thinking about like today, and not just maybe what we see or hear on LinkedIn that they should be thinking about. So give us like a quick little, I don't know, couple minutes.
Yeah.
You just were in Asia. Now you're in the Caribbean. When you're having a drink with the GM at the bar,
Sure.
What are people thinking about? Like what's top of mind, and is it different depending on the market that you're in?
So what I'm hearing on the ground really depends entirely on where you're standing. And the gap is getting wider. So when I talk to GMs and owners in Asia, especially Bangkok, the conversation is always forward looking. They're thinking about pace, precision, and guest obsessions. You know, they talk about service details, staff pride, personalization, repeat guests, and really staying relevant in the ultra competitive markets, because like in Bangkok, there's five-star hotels on every block. Like it's crazy. The mindset is simple, but if they don't evolve fast, someone else beats them tomorrow. So in Asia, hospitality is still viewed as a craft. It's a respected profession, and GMs are involved in the guest experience, not just the numbers. They walk the floor. They know repeat guests by name. They obsess over breakfast, arrival moments, and how the hotel feels different at different times of the day. Now, compare that to much of the Caribbean, and the mindset is different. A lot of demand is destination driven. Sun, beach, and airlift does a lot of the work. And because of that, there's often less urgency around innovation. Many GMs are focusing on staffing, costs, and owner pressure, which are real challenges. But the guest experience conversation is often reactive instead of proactive. The mindset feels more defensive, and they protect what we have instead of reinventing what could be.
Very well said. And do you think like when folks are thinking about like their business, right? How is it? Are GMs, maybe this is even a stereotype, right? But are GMs in Asia, like, are they more progressive? Are they more technologically like interested in experimentation versus, again, total stereotype here, you're on a beautiful island in the Caribbean and you kind of have demand baked in some sense, because people like going to nice, beautiful places. And just culturally, right? It's more about being laid back and, you know, sitting on a beach chair and drinking a cold beer or whatever it might be. Right. So from a progressive perspective, as it pertains to adoption of new trends, thinking progressively about how to create content like the very content that you're talking about. Do you notice a meaningful difference depending on the market you're in?
So I will give you two real life examples, and it's my last two experiences. So I was just in Thailand, and the last 10 days that I was there, I stayed at Malibu, the place that they filmed the Hangover movie. So the GM there, he's been there for 18 years. His name is Rajan. He is a wonderful guy. He greeted me in the lobby when I got there. And, you know, like every day I go down. So when I'm staying that long at a hotel, I'll spend minimum an hour in the lobby just sitting there watching. This guy's like walking the floor. He's like helping the bellman wheel luggage out to the cars. Like, this guy is such a big deal GM, like at one of the biggest, most profitable properties in the world. And the guy's sitting there rolling out the luggage with the bellman. And it's unbelievable. So that guy, he answers directly to the owner. It's one owner. Again, it's an independent. It's not, they don't wave the big flag. So he's very quick on decisions, like extremely quick. But it doesn't always work like that in Asia. You know, yes, some owners are very progressive and they give the management a lot of leeway. But if they wave that big flag, it just moves at a snail's pace, because they're just going for the mass and they don't really care about that. Versus now I'm in Jamaica, I have the same type of, not the GM, but the owner, and this guy moves at warp speed. I mean, he makes every hotel owner I've ever met in my life look like they're dead. So, I mean, it depends on the different property, but overall in the Caribbean, because like you said, tourism is just so baked in because, there's a massive, cruise population. There's a massive airlift population. There's a massive, just a lot of tourism all year long here. So it's, they sort of by default get a little lazy when it comes to being aggressive with innovation and forward thinking, things like that.
One of the things I have thought about recently is this conundrum, so to speak, right? Between when you have a place like the Caribbean where your hotel is, and you have these just, unbelievable views. It is a set, right? As you like to describe it, a stage, right? Sure. For a great story. Sure. It's typically those sorts of places that I think sometimes struggle to be more progressive with their content creation and storytelling versus when you're, in some urban environment, whether it be Bangkok or New York, right? Obviously, loads of beautiful things in cities as well, but almost you have to tell more. So you almost have to not fabricate, but you have to work a little bit harder to set the stage, right? Sure. And it's just funny, right? To me that the people that need to work harder typically have, less to work with versus the people that have a lot to work with, right? Might be a little bit slower to adopt this type of content strategy.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to hear Edwin's point of view because I just did the Caribbean and I did Asia, but I'm curious to see how Europe feels about this kind of mentality as far as innovation and things like that.
Edwin, maybe the question too, because I think you dropped off for a second there, is from a content storytelling, a founder-led, a GM-led storytelling perspective, are you seeing this take off in Europe in the way that Scott's seeing this happen more and more in Asia and now in the Caribbean, in Jamaica? Is that translating to across the pond?
Yeah, and I didn't catch some of that because I did drop off. My apologies. Listen, I know the Asian hospitality from a long time ago, right? And a lot of general managers weren't necessarily general managers. They were sort of number twos because the owners really had a big input. They led the property. They knew town. They knew guests. So it was a very different sport back then in Asia versus what it is what it was in the rest of the world. But I think the world has a lot more owners now who want to get involved. So that model also moves over to Europe and to other places.
Here's how I see Europe. Europe sits in the middle, but it's split. Southern Europe leans into heritage and tradition, which can be powerful, but can also resist change. Northern Europe is systems driven and efficient, but sometimes loses emotional warmth. European GMs talk about standards and consistency. Asian GMs talk about feeling, and Caribbean GMs talk about constraints. Those starting points shape everything. The biggest difference across all regions is how success is defined. How you measure it.
Yeah, and also how success is defined by your owner, right, or the ownership group, because that also can vary dramatically. Scott, I think this is a nice segue. We want to talk about the Ian Schrager story, but I want Edwin. Edwin, hopefully, he can join us, folks. He's clearly having some internet issues, but if he is able to hop back on, we'll talk about the Ian Schrager story with him and his recent announcement with Highgate taking over management of Public, his latest brand. Very cool. Fun story there. But Scott, you were hinting at this earlier. You were saying, hey, a lot of these hotel owners and GMs actually don't know how to create content that is optimized for, AI search, right? AEO, as some folks are calling it. GEO, as others are calling it.
GEO, so right.
I don't think the industry is quite solidified on what we're actually calling the acronym, but we're getting there. But point being, there was a story this week that came out that Accor launched an app in partnership with ChatGPT. So for those who might not be familiar, ChatGPT, right, in addition, obviously, to just being an incredible LLM that many of us are using more than we use Google right now. you're able to build from a development perspective a layer on top of the LLM and basically build apps. Think about it as like a mini app store. So you think about these as plugins or as data sets, quite frankly, that kind of live and exist within the chatbot that is ChatGPT. So Accor announced this week that they launched, I think, the first of its kind app in partnership with ChatGPT. And just for our listeners, I actually played around with it a little bit. I don't know if you guys had a chance to play around with it either, but what's pretty cool about it is it operates as you would expect, right? A ChatGPT response to operate. Sure. It just uses all the context, right, from Accor's brand Bible, like their brand style, their guidelines, all the content on Accor's website. It's scraping, and then how it works. Like I was querying it, saying things like, "Hey, I'm looking for this kind of a hotel, roughly these sorts of dates with my family," and the first response I get is the expected response. It's like, "Okay, great. I've got lots of recommendations for you. Are you looking for like a beach, vacation?" Wow. These are the different recommendations I have. But my point is, the first step is like, there's no like, here are the Accor hotels that you should that you should go book, right? It's very conversant, right? As you would expect. It's very educational. It's like, are you looking for laid back beachy vibes with the kids? Are you looking for a beautiful historic town where you can go on walks and there's parks nearby? So it does the work of getting to know me and my intent as the user through quite frankly, like semantic conversation, right? Sure. As you would expect. And only then, once I fine tune it and then say, this is the kind of property I'm looking for, does it then say, okay, well, here are some recommendations from Accor that you might want to check out. So it's not like an app that is, hey, enter a query and get a list of Accor hotels that match your query. It's really like, here's an app with a bunch of context that might be interesting or helpful to travelers. Still do the work, ChatGPT, of understanding user intent. And only when you think, ChatGPT, that the user is ready to make that kind of like purchasing decision, if you will, then serve them the links to do so. So anyways, very interesting, very cool. Super interested to see how this all plays out. But Sky, I wanted your reaction to this story. What do you think of it? Were you able to play around with it at all? And how does this maybe align with what you were just sharing a moment ago about the importance of having rich storytelling content for that first stage of engagement, of the relationship that ChatGPT and the user have?
So I was able to play around a little bit with it. And this is the story I love most this week. And I want to be very clear why. I don't care if it works. I care that they're trying. This is what leadership looks like right now. Accor isn't waiting for the perfect data or guaranteed ROI. They're testing behavior. They can't lose. They're learning how guests search. They're showing up where attention already lives. That alone puts them ahead of most global hotel groups. This isn't really about bookings. It's about relevance. Travel planning isn't linear anymore. Guests aren't starting with brand websites. They're starting with questions. Where should I go? What fits my budget? What feels like me? Accor understands that whoever owns the early conversation has a massive advantage downstream, even if it fails commercially. The insight they gain will shape everything they build next.
What I think is super interesting too is presumably ChatGPT should have done this with like Marriott or Hilton. Like you'd think that those would be like the first.
Accor is the last brand that I would ever expect that this would happen with.
100%, right? But it shows or not. Okay, say more, Edwin. Say more.
There you go.
Go on, Edwin. The other ones, the other big players, they're often very slow, very legal, very safe.
Exactly.
Accor is brand fragmented, less dominant in the US.
Yeah.
And they don't have that great of a loyalty power versus Marriott or Hilton. So, they have to compete on distribution innovation, right? Not just skill. Marriott and Hilton, they win on skill. They win on these loyalty lock-ins. And I think for them, with all their brands that are quite different from all the other bigger brands. Marriott and Hilton will still be app first and property first and have a program with loyalty as points and nights. And I think Accor just flipped that order. So I think it's very clever what they did. And I certainly didn't expect that either. But if you look at where they've come, what their plans are with Ennismore, for example, I mean, they've got some people here in office, just like Scott said, who really want to make the difference.
Yeah.
Plus, can you imagine all the information this is loading into AI?
Oh,
It's phenomenal. Yeah. So even if it doesn't convert, because I played around with it like we said we would. And in the beginning, I thought, I can just go to the app. What's the difference?
Right.
But then when you start feeding it information, this is fun.
It's very smart.
This is very clever. But now it knows a lot about me already. And you just imagine what that does versus the bigger, slower, safer moving companies. So pretty cool.
Where this gets really fun too is like you can set up, you can tell ChatGPT to like remind you, right, of certain things, or like send you notifications when events happen, right? And so where my head went, and I will say actually, just for I'll link the app in the show notes if anyone else who's tuning in want to go and test it out. I will say after my initial prompts, I got like a map view with no Accor hotels. Like it was basically like, here's the hotels that you should book. And there were none. Right? And it pulled up a map view, right? As if like there should be like pins and icons of hotels. And then I was like, give me more options. And then it fed me some Marriott options. And so like, it's not perfect, but like,
but they're there, right? They're trying. And I played around with it and I asked it to give recommendations for restaurants. Some of those restaurants were permanently closed. It's not perfect yet, but bless them for getting in there.
No, but that's what I was gonna say. Is like in terms of just even like relevance, like I don't know that I could list off like all of Accor's like brands, like Ennismore is probably the only one that I actually even know, quite frankly, off the top of my head of like in their association, and that's probably true for like the vast majority of consumers. But if they see this, and ChatGPT's started promoting this actually, like I've gotten ads for their Accor partnership. That's probably also just because I'm always clicking on hotel content, right? And it knows me, so I don't know how big that audience size is for these particular ads.
Right.
But point being, they responded so quickly and fast, and I think that is the opportunity, right? So if you're an independent operator right now and a player in the space, you can go build your own ChatGPT apps. By the way, like this is not something that is like exclusive to the Accors of the Marriotts, the Hiltons of the world. But point being, right, the people that can move fast right now and test these things, like those are the individuals that are going to win. To Edwin's point, the bigger guys just have so much to lose, so they're going to take so long
and are so risk adverse, right? And need to study all the downfalls and all the things that can go wrong and what risk we're taking. Whilst I'm of course a giant company, but the fact that they're looking at an IPO for Ennismore, the fact that they've got all these brand teams in there leading their portfolios of properties. I mean, they're probably a faster thinking company at the moment. So hats off to them.
Yeah, hats off. And last thing I would just say on this point too is the reminder thing I was hinting at, right? So you could set a reminder and say like, hey, if any new hotels happen to like match my search preferences roughly, like just send me a push notification. And I do this all the time with ChatGPT. I just say like, hey, if this happens, then push me, or like if or set a daily reminder for me to check my, workout schedule or whatever it might be, right? And so you can imagine a world in which like the consumers just give it all the information, Edwin, right? That you want it to have on you, and then anytime, right, there's a search that matches your intent or availability that matches your intent, you get a ping, and that's where things get really interesting, but. Hats off to Accor. Let's keep playing around with it. And again, for our listeners, if you haven't checked the app out already, it'll be in the show notes below. I highly encourage you to do so. Let's go to the next story, Edwin. While we have you, before the internet goes out again, like we want to talk about
Ian Schrager. It's not my internet. I don't know what it is, so my apologies. I don't know if I dropped in and out too often, but I'm here now. I think I'm hopefully here to stay.
I didn't realize U.S. and Europe tensions were that elevated to the point where we can't even be on the same Zoom call anymore, right?
Exactly.
But so Ian Schrager, who is probably needs no introduction to the people listening to this program, widely celebrated hotelier. He is typically seen as sort of the father of the modern lifestyle hotel. building incredible brands such as Edition. His most recent brand is Public Hotels, and news that actually broke last week that we didn't cover because we didn't have our European correspondent, who actually also worked with Ian Schrager for many years on the program. But Highgate has tapped, or I should say, Ian Schrager has tapped Highgate as his strategic partner to expand his public hotel brands. This news was broken by Skift. They say that the partnership gives Highgate responsibility for development, operations, and expansion of Public, while Schrager remains closely involved on the creative and brand side. The goal is to accelerate growth after years of relatively slow expansion for the brand. I think they have, they had a couple initial launches in New York and Miami, and then not much buzz after that. Public was originally positioned as Schrager's answer to a changing market, a more accessible design-forward hotel concept aimed at a younger, experience-driven traveler. But like many founder-led lifestyle brands, scaling has proven to be difficult. So Highgate has come in. They've quietly, over the last, several years, become one of the most powerful hotel operating platforms in the world. They do some branded, but really kind of their sweet spot is lifestyle, more independent hotels. So this feels like a really exciting opportunity for both Highgate and Schrager. Edwin, I want to go to you here. You obviously worked with Ian. You helped play a leadership role in launching Edition Hotels. What do you think of this partnership? What are you excited about? Are you cautiously optimistic about anything? Give us your take.
Look, if you're a really good artist and you're a sculptor or a painter, you should be allowed to do what you do best and let a gallery or gallerist handle the distribution, the sales, the marketing, and everything else. That's the way I see this. Schrager has done this with Edition. I was lucky enough to be at the first property and the sixth property. I saw the brand grow. And Marriott, who took a chance on creating this brand, instead of putting this brand under the leadership of everybody in Bethesda, they created a brand team based out of New York, same office as Ian Schrager, direct reporting lines. And Marriott back in the day said, hands off Marriott people, let this Edition team build this brand. Over the course of time, the big company, the Marriott will take over, right? But that's what the beginning phase was. And we've seen with Schrager, he's tried to do this on his own. He with this new partnership, he's a steward of his own creativity, and let Highgate do what they do best. I think this works once Ian has found, and I'm sure he's been on the lookout for this, somebody who's at his level, who he can talk to and he can converse with and make decisions with. Because that's what he had with Arne Sorensen back in the day of the collaboration of him and creating the brand with Marriott. They talked the same level. They understood what needed to happen, and Arne was the first one to say, Ian, do what you need to do, because we believe that in this brand, but we don't really know how to do this ourselves, right?
It's leaving us on a cliffhanger, as always with Edwin. But I mean, well said. Couldn't agree with Edwin more there. I think this is a huge opportunity for Highgate, quite frankly, right? To be able to have somebody as notable as Schrager now a part of your collection is massive, massive credibility for the brand. Scott, what do you think? Anything else to add on this story?
First off, can I just do a little side note that does Rafat understand how many shout outs he gets on our podcast every week? Story brought by Skiff. Story brought by Skiff.
Skiff, it's quick follow on that. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast, actually, the New York Times. I might have even mentioned it on this program. They had a bunch of journalists together, kind of reflecting on the state of journalism today, and they were distinguishing between true journalists, true reporting and commentary, right, and how we've blurred those lines. But what I'll say is Skiff does some freaking great reporting, right? Which makes our job easier as commentators and riffers, quite frankly. So yes, Rafa and team do get a lot of shout out, as they should. Love them. They do great work.
I'm a huge fan. So when I look at this partnership, I don't see a comeback story. I see a reality check. Founder-led lifestyle brands are incredible at vision, culture, and setting the tone for an era. They aren't built to scale on vision alone anymore. The industry today rewards systems, discipline, and capital efficiency, basically, and operational depth. public hotels was never a creative failure. It was an execution bottleneck in a world where construction costs exploded and investors stopped funding passion projects without a clear path to scale. And it was all about scale. This feels like a generational handoff. Schrager stays close to the creative, which is exactly where he belongs, while Highgate handles the unglamorous work of operations. This is gold, I think.
Yeah. Edwin, now that you're back on, were you surprised by this partnership at all? Like, were you surprised Ian didn't, I don't know, find a partner with, I don't know what his terms are with Marriott, quite frankly, but like with Hilton or Hyatt, or like a larger flag to help with, finding one of their preferred operators, maybe even doing some, brand licensing deal with them? Like, does this move surprise you at all, or does this feel very okay?
Listen, he's tried this on his own, right? And he's burned more than a general manager per year. So, this is just not his thing. And a little insight, Ian never set out to, and this is his words, right? He never set out to give a bad service. It just wasn't his thing. And when we started the Edition, I remember him saying to the brand team, I want the employee that talks about my brand with a sparkle in the eye, like people in Ritz-Carlton do. That was what I wished to have. And it wasn't anything he'd done before. So I'm sure he's been trying to find.
There you go.
Edwin, another cliffhanger. Ladies and gents, what was he going to say?
Right,
oh my gosh.
Right.
I'm mid. Oh gosh, I got to go get some more popcorn, man. I'm on the edge of my seat here. He's so poetic when he talks. We'll let him finish that if he hops back on again, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for your patience with Sir Edwin. For the sake of time, Scott, let's keep going. We'll come back to that last point of the Schrager story if Edwin can join us again.
Yeah.
So this story might seem a little bit out of left field, but I wanted to include it because, one, I think it's just personally interesting, and the fun thing about doing a podcast is you get to talk about whatever the heck you think is interesting, right? But I also think there's some hospitality relevance to this story. And that story is Disney announced their new CEO after Bob Iger retires. And their new CEO is actually their current CEO from Parks and Experiences, Josh D'Amaro, I think is how you say his name,
yes.
Or D'Amaro. He was a longtime chairman of Parks, Experiences, and Products, and he will be Disney's next CEO. Now, this is super interesting for a number of factors. The choice, right, when you look at the numbers, is that Disney's Experiences division, which encompasses, again, just for the listeners, theme parks, resorts, cruise ships, consumer products, and more, generates about $36 billion in annual revenue for the company and about $10 billion in annual profit as of 2025. Disney is now committing an ambitious $60 billion investment over the next decade into parks, cruises, and other related experiences. They're expanding their cruise offerings to new destinations like Disneyland, Abu Dhabi. They're betting on real-world franchise-driven experiences that will continue to be the company's most durable value driver. I think this is notable because they could have picked someone from streaming, right? They could have picked Disney Plus. They could have said, hey, digital content's our future, virtual content and experiences is the future of the company. We need someone that understands that business well. I think this is a strong signal that Disney's going to over-invest and over-index, right, in-person experiential product, right? Whether that be parks, whether that be resorts, whether that be new cruises, et cetera. Scott, I want your take here on this move. Like, do you think we'll see more Disney hotels pop up? Quite frankly, I've been surprised that we don't see more. They have a handful of resorts, obviously, but Disney has enough IP to build like a Marvel hotel universe outside of a park. They have enough IP to go build whatever the frick they want, quite frankly, in terms of hospitality concept. What do you think of this move? What do you think we'll see from Disney in the next few years here?
Yeah, I do not think you will see Disney hotels anywhere. They are, so growing up in Florida, we were season ticket holders for, they control Orlando. Like I don't think that people realize that don't have kids or don't go to Disney or don't, understand. I don't think people realize how powerful this company is. I mean, you don't understand. Like, let me just, for everybody who's not a sports fan, They own ESPN.
Yep. Hulu.
ESPN just bought 10% of the NFL network. Like it's like people don't understand they're a cash cow, and Disney just told us exactly where the future of entertainment lives, and it's not streaming. Okay, streaming, yes, but when the whole world is shifting towards digital, they still control the real life experience, making memories. It lives in physical experiences people can feel, remember, and justify spending money on. And if you've ever went to Disney, they are spending money more than that. I mean, it is so expensive to go to Disney. It is unbelievable. And there's a waiting, like a wait list for everything.
Yeah.
For season passes, for it's unbelievable how much this is such a smart move. This should be a wake-up call for all of hospitality, because Disney understands something that the industry often forgets. Experiences create emotional loyalty. Content is disposable. Parks, resorts, cruises, and destinations, they build memories that last decades. That's why Disney can justify massive capital investments and long-term planning. They're not just chasing short-term engagement, they're building lifetime relationships.
Scott, why don't you think we'll see more Disney hotels though? Like, to me, that seems
sense.
like, but why? But like, it seems like they understand hospitality. They understand experience. When you go to Disneyland, actually, my first time at Disneyland, I was 18 years old because my family, we didn't have like money growing up. So but we went like my grandfather, for whatever reason, paid for us to go when I was like 18, which I was like, this is stupid. I like was not interested.
Right.
But I'll tell you, like, it was truly magical. Like everything that people think, like, I mean, unbelievably, and we went to Disneyland, not Disney World or anything like that, but like, I mean, unbelievably like clean, like just, it truly felt like you were in, I could appreciate it as an 18-year-old dude, right? Like, I don't even think I went on maybe I went on a couple rides, but like, but just the overall experience truly was fantastical,
It really
right?
is.
And so you have the ingredients, right? To build an exception, and maybe Disney is actually a hospitality company, right? Like, but why not? Why won't we see like a Disney hotel concept in New York or LA, or like what makes you say no to Disney hotels?
I just don't think that I think that the more immediate money and the long-term money for them is in the parks and experiences. I think if they start to spread themselves too thin as far as hotels are concerned, I think they'll dilute the brand. They do an excellent job with cruises. I mean, excellent. So do you know what they focus on the cruises? Yeah, they have the great kids club and they have all the characters and all the, the theme. And they can do that kind of stuff in their sleep. What they concentrate on the cruises is the parents. Because they've already mastered the kids stuff. They have unbelievable wine lists. They have unbelievable chefs. They concentrate on entertainment for the parents when the kids are out playing. I mean, they are really the masters of experiences. I mean, there is nobody better. They're excellent.
But then why not go into hotels? I mean, Edwin, what do you think?
I've got my little different take. When I agree with you, Scott, on some points, but I think the question is slightly different. I mean, I had no idea Disney owned that many hotels and resorts. I went to, I dove into the story. Over 25 on their website, right? Yep. Disney is an international company, but this is a very USA thing until today. I mean, Paris is Disneyland. I think if you go to Paris, you probably wouldn't stay at the hotel, or not everybody would stay at the hotel. People would probably stay somewhere else. And we know from Europeans who go to Disney on a US visit, they normally don't stay at the at the Disney hotels. I don't know why, but that's sort of what I got from this. But I don't think they will have a Disney hotel in New York. But I think there's a huge opportunity for Disney to expand their theme parks. And I think if they do that, like they're going to do in the Middle East now, and if they do this elsewhere, there may be opportunities for more hotels. So I think it's
the parks.
The answer is twofold. So if they open more parks, I mean, we have this park in Holland that I grew up with, and you don't necessarily stay there because in Holland you drive an hour and you're everywhere in our country. But what they did there, I mean, they had this mid-segment hotel just like Disney has. They've just built this is a giant theme park like Disney. They just built a luxury hotel there. And you can see the increased demand all of a sudden of people saying, it's going to cost me so much to go to the park. I'm going to spend some money on a really good hotel too, because so far it's been the mid segment. And if I spend all this money, I don't want to stay in an average hotel. I think there might be a huge opportunity if they move their parks or add parks to the Middle East and to Asia and go up market with their experience. I think there's a huge opportunity for them.
And maybe, Scott, to your point, maybe as I'm thinking about this more too, challenge of doing something, leveraging their IP for an asset like a hotel, right? Is that it's fleeting, right? Like, will people love Frozen? How long will people love Frozen for, right? How long will people love, the Encanto, which my kids are obsessed with right now, for? Like, is this like a 3-year play, right? Of like relevance?
Now, having said that, they are expanding it. Like, they're looking for other locations in Asia and the Middle East, and they are. And when those parks are built, they will have hotels in them. But
exactly.
In my head, it just does not make sense to do a Disney hotel outside of a park. It just doesn't.
And maybe some of it just has to do with the control too, right? Like, they need to be able to control every variable, which they can in the parks.
They're complete in control.
Less so in like, downtown Manhattan.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, gentlemen, Edwin, before we move on to our final segment here, you cut off as you were just about to talk about your last big point about Ian Schrager and this Highgate deal and this partnership. You were saying something along the lines of how you're not surprised by this partnership. It makes sense. I
was going to say, if he finds the right partner like he had with Arnie Sorensen, who he can talk to, same level, and that person's going to protect him from what he wants to do, I think this could be key, and I think there'd be a winner. And what I was going to say is, he probably, you were talking about any other big brands. He probably looked for a while to see who he could connect with, because he knew once Arnie passed away, that that relationship he had was dead and somebody else took over. So I'm sure he's looked for that, and he's a clever man. He's been around for a long time. But this is not the only one. I was going to mention also, the Nomad brand, great New York property. They lost that. Only one property left. It's in London. Andrew Zobler, Sidel Group. They've got a really great history. But he also had problems scaling, right, and doing these things. And he's still allowed to do, even though the setup was a bit different, but he's still allowed to do this with his team, the same team that opened up the other Nomads for Hilton. So as long as that gets protected and it doesn't fall under people who oversee a multiple amount of brands, I think this could be huge. So I'm looking forward to that.
Can I just tag on to that? So when I was just in Bangkok, I was staying at the Standard. And my really good friend, a Mexican guy, but he's lived in Bangkok or Asia for 18 years. He is actually just as of 2 days ago relocated to Singapore, and he is going to be the GM of the Nomad Hotel in Singapore, which is opening up next year. So it's very, very interesting because we'll be doing the photo shoots. We'll be doing a lot of things down there. So I'm very excited about that. It's funny that you just mentioned that.
Right.
Small world, gentlemen. Small world. All right, let's go to Spice of the Week before we close out the pod. Edwin, let's start with you, good sir, because who knows how long your internet will last. What is
this is my most unprofessional conversation online I've had, and my sincere apologies. Is not my Wi-Fi. I will throw my laptop out of the window. It's very distracting. Anyway. Listen, my Spice of the Week was something to think about, and I heard this on a show on YouTube, and it was about where hotels have come from. Owners ran a hotel, and every decision they made was based on the fact that they were the operator. That's how the original hotel started, right? A long time ago. Then all of a sudden we had owner and operator. And now the split is often owner, brand, and operator. And if you look at it, all three parties have different goals, different ambitions, a whole different set of KPIs. And we're still wondering why sometimes things fall through the crack, or why GMs find it really hard to navigate this world nowadays, right? Based on what we talked about earlier. And if you're, if we think about the model, and maybe this is where we will go back to. I mean, the whole drive of boutique hotels, owner operated hotels, it'll still work, but it works because if you make decisions based on EBITDA or NOI, whatever you calculate as bottom line, then every decision you make is based on making that hotel better. So you as an owner operator can thrive in that sense, instead of having to rely as an operator on fees, or as a brand on fees, or the whole model just becomes different. So I thought it was a real interesting conversation to see where the business is going to go. The first hotel companies are collapsing that have this kind of model. The big brands have all been chasing fees, growth, the different models of franchise operators. So I thought it was an interesting point to see what's happening in the world. And I know you were talking when I dropped off earlier about GMs having conversations in the world. I see around me a lot of people saying, I don't necessarily feel that tribe that I'm working for anymore, and the brand that I wanted to work for, because it's become much more bland. And I think when you have owner and brand and operator with such different mindsets and different goals, it becomes much harder to navigate. So that's what I'm hearing from operators on the ground, or at least general managers on the ground.
Well said. Well said. My spice of the week is closely related, or maybe a potential solution to that very challenge. It was reported this week that there had been these rumors that LVMH was going to start like a hotel, and or a hotel brand more broadly. But Bernard Arnault said this week that like he doesn't want to do that. He wants to stay focused on LVMH's like core product offering. That said, I have seen this just abundance of strong consumer retail brands, right? Thinking about, right, like how do we continue to differentiate? How do we do, beyond just in-person activations? And I was talking to a few hotel designers randomly over the last couple of weeks and asking them just like, hey, where do you get your like inspiration from? And every single one of them said retail today. Like they're like, when's the last time you actually walked into like a mall? Like they're like, retail is having a moment. Like there's no inspiration left in like looking at other hotels. Like everyone's just doing what everyone else has done, right? And or it's like too bland, or it's too, you're too constrained. But retail is really having a moment. And the reason here is a lot of these brands that are now opening retail stores or pop-ups, they started on Instagram, right? They started on the internet. So they know, they understand content, they understand what works, they understand aesthetic, quite frankly, better than, the JCPenney's and the Macy's of the world did, right? And so they're now coming in, these internet brands, they're building these activations and or sometimes like permanent retail shops in flagship locations. And they understand impeccable design, and they understand user experience and flow in person like they do digitally. So that's a long way of saying that, like, I think we'll see. There was a story that we didn't get to this week of an example happening like this. A brand just bought the Surfrider hotel in Malibu. They paid like $40 million for a 20-key hotel, right? It's like a goth luxury fashion brand. I had quite frankly never even heard of the brand. But point being that like I do see retail. I bet my spice is that I bet we'll see more retail brands actually break into traditional hospitality because they understand what today's consumer wants. They understand experience, both digital, right, and the physical, if they have a strong digital and retail brand. And I think that those are the ingredients today that you need to be competitive in the hotel space. So that's my quick little.
Now, Zach, flip that around. I mean, most brands didn't get further than slippers and bathrobes and caps, right? But Aman already has Aman Essentials, which is a full range of clothing.
There you go.
There is no reason, So all these brands all these fashion brands who are starting in hotels, and LVMH already has Cheval Blanc, right? And so they already have a brand from their end. But all these brands, I think it's great, right? All these fashion brands getting into hospitality because you can really then showcase, what your fashion brand should feel like. But it'd be interesting to see who can actually flip this and go beyond the regular merch, right? From a hospitality perspective. It's
going to be, I'm excited. Scott, let's close with you, man. What is your spice of the week?
Yeah, so I just want to like a little bit of asterisk on your thing. If you come to Miami, you will see the branded residence for fashion brands and just big brands. We have the Austin Martin residence building. We have the Porsche Tower. You have Dolce & Gabbana. residences is coming up. I mean, it is like there's numerous.
Fun.
So Miami, because there's so much wealth moving in down there. I mean, it's just these buildings are getting sold out like immediately. So,
and the question is whether whether those are one-off PR marketing stunts, or whether there's actually opportunity here.
I think you win either way. Yeah. So my spice of the week, I wanted to bring the Super Bowl into this conversation because it's impossible to ignore how big this moment is from a marketing and hospitality standpoint. The Super Bowl is Sunday. It's not just a football game. It is the single biggest shared attention moment left in modern culture. And when a 30-second ad costs
in the US,
in the world, I think actually maybe World Cup. World Cup might be bigger, Scott.
No. But yes, the World Cup draws more eyeballs. The Super Bowl draws more eyeballs that have the capability of spending a certain amount. That's they've done studies. So yes, the World Cup, I mean, you can't just compete. But
the World Cup isn't one shared moment, right? It's over the course of, whereas the Super Bowl is one shared moment. So it's 4 hours.
So listen, you're talking about a 30-second ad costing $8 million. And that is only the buy-in. Then you have to do the creative, then you have to create it, then you have to storyboard. I mean, it's unbelievable, but it tells you everything you need to know about the power of mass movements. What fascinates me about Super Bowl advertising isn't really the product anymore. It's about memory. Nobody remembers the specs. Nobody remembers the offer. People remember how the ad made them feel. They always remember who they watched it with and where they were when it aired. That's pure hospitality thinking. Yeah. Emotion, context, shared experience, they matter more than features. And the brands that will win on Super Bowl night, those are the ones that understand storytelling and psychology, not just media buying. From a hospitality perspective, this is the ultimate reminder that events drive behavior. Hotels, bars, cruises, restaurants, destinations all benefit from moments like this. The economic impact of a Super Bowl is, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's in the hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion. I mean, it's really incredible.
Have you seen the Redfin ad that they released earlier?
Yeah.
So Redfin is like there's a $1 million home that they're like giving away on Redfin, and you have to download the app, and it's basically I don't know, like a little treasure hunt. You have to like look for it in these particular places. There's gonna be like clues along the way, but like 3 people have sent me that ad, and it hasn't even aired yet, right? And I mean, I already have the Redfin app downloaded, but if I didn't, like that got me like super jazzed. So I hope this is a big success for them as one small example.
Do you know how many million PR value is for what they've done? I mean, they don't even care about the $1 million home.
No.
Like, who cares?
No.
The other big takeaway is risk. Super buy ads are expensive. There's no guaranteed ROI. Brands still show up because relevance matters. Being part of the cultural conversation matters. That's the lesson hospitality brands often forget. And so if you remember back, I don't remember what year it was, and I think we talked about this one time before. This is when fast food and junk food got cool in marketing. So they had the power went out during a halftime show.
That's right. Yes.
And the Oreo came up with it, and it was on Twitter. They came up, dunk in the dark. And that trended. And from that day forward, that's when fast food and junk food and like all the stuff that's bad for you got so cool in marketing.
Dude, I miss like old Twitter when like you could go on and it was smart, it was funny, it was like it was the greatest social. It was all the social media managers at like the top brands that were just like just hanging out. It's where they hung out, right?
Yes.
And it was so enjoyable. It's so hard to find like content like that now.
Listen, the real lesson here is simple. Attention is expensive. Emotion is priceless. Period.
That sounds like a fantastic way to end the pod, gentlemen. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to this episode. We're actually going to play a little clip at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. Scott did a man on the street sort of gig with a GM down in Jamaica that he's been talking to. Just quick, fun, casual conversation about things he's thinking about. The owner of the Jamaican hotel that he's staying at and working with. So give that a listen. Let us know what you think. We want to do a better job of including other voices on this program. So if you've got a story to tell or a question to ask or just something to contribute to this conversation that we have every week, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. Again, you can find all of us via the links in the show notes below. Edwin, in true fashion, is gone. We've got Bob Marley record that Scott's holding up. He's going to give that record away to our 1,000th subscriber on YouTube. So let's get there, folks. But thank you everyone for tuning in to this pod. Scott, we lost Edwin again in true fashion, just as the show's ending, as we should. Ben, we missed you, man. We'll see you next week. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and we will see you next time.
So I'm here at the S Hotel in Kingston, and I am with Christopher Issa, very good friend. And he owns the S Hotel in Kingston and as well as the S Hotel in Montego Bay. So welcome, Christopher.
Thank you, Scott.
Can you just tell me a little bit about the current state of hospitality in Jamaica?
Well, as you know, we suffered with the Hurricane Melissa in late last year. But I would say tourism is really rebounding very strongly. A lot of the hotels are reopening. A lot of people got over the initial shock of visiting Jamaica in what we call impacted hurricane. And we have been rising amazingly, our resilience and the will to get back in business very quickly.
I mean, Jamaica as a whole, the Caribbean, you have to be resilient against hurricanes because if you don't, you'll be out of business very quickly.
We did have Barry last year too, although it wasn't as bad.
Right.
We have had our recent experiences. Yeah. I would say our hospitality industry is also evolving. We have new types of hotels on the market. We have a casino coming. We have a grand, Hard Rock Hotel coming to Montego Bay. We had the Princess with their overwater suites in Green Island. Right. And we're also having a lot of boutique type restaurants and Airbnb type products.
That's fantastic.
Adding a lot of variety to the industry, as well as our culture, which is being promoted more and more, our food and just the Jamaican people. So
absolutely. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks for joining us this week. If any part of today's conversation sparked an idea or helped you think differently about the industry, we'd love to continue the conversation. You can find each of us on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram, or whatever your preferred social platform of choice is. Links to all of our profiles are in the show notes below. This Week in Hospitality is presented by Journey. Journey is a loyalty platform built specifically for independent boutique hotels and high-touch hospitality brands. Our mission is to give operators the same powerful rewards engine, data intelligence, and guest insights that major chains rely on, without asking them to give up the individuality, the soul, and the story that makes their property so exceptional. At a moment when travelers are craving unique, meaningful experiences and operators are navigating rising OTA costs, fragmented data, and shifting expectations, Journey provides a unified ecosystem that strengthens guest relationships, increases direct bookings, and helps independent properties thrive on their own terms. We're building a global, curated alliance of exceptional hotels, villas, and residences, a network that rewards exploration, empowers individuality, and gives independents the scale that they deserve. If you're an owner or operator of an extraordinary independently owned and operated hotel or residence, and if you want to see whether your property is a fit for the Journey Alliance, you can learn more and apply at alliance.journey.com. All right, friends, we'll see you next Friday. Until then, keep building experiences that are worth remembering.